Thanks for tuning in to the Drive On podcast, where we talk about issues affecting veterans after they get out of the military. Before we get started, I'd like to ask a favor. If you haven't done so already, please rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts. If you've already done that, thank you. These ratings help the show get discovered so it can reach a wider audience. And while you're there, click the subscribe button so that you get notified of new episodes as soon as they come out. If you don't use Apple Podcasts, you can visit driveonpodcast.com/subscribe to find other ways of subscribing, including our email list. I'm your host, Scott DeLuzio, and now, let's get on with the show. All right, can we get a reset on 2020? This whole virus situation has gotten a little out of hand, hasn't it? I'm recording this a few days prior to when it'll come out. It's Friday, March 20th right now, so I'll make a few predictions about the state of affairs half a week from now. More states will have placed their entire population on mandatory lockdowns. I think as of right now, it's just California and Illinois that have done so. I could be wrong. There could be more. Numbers of infections from this virus will have steadily increased, and unfortunately so will deaths. And my final prediction is that toilet paper will have become more valuable than U.S. currency. Okay, that one is a little bit tongue-in-cheek. Hopefully that doesn't come true. And as a matter of fact, hopefully none of those predictions come true. I would like to see all of those to be proven false. But I don't know that will be true, unfortunately. So why does it seem like society is collapsing around us? Is it the media that's causing us to panic? Are there legitimate concerns that some of us don't understand or maybe just aren't taking seriously? The recommendations to prevent infection include all the stuff we've heard over the last few weeks. Wash your hands, don't touch your face, the social distancing, whatever the hell that is, and all the other stuff that they recommend. Now, I've seen two responses to these recommendations. One is complete and utter panic. The world is ending. None of us are going to make it out alive. The other can be categorized as complete disregard of those recommendations. Like, fuck it, I probably won't get it. Or maybe it's confusion about the recommendations. I don't get why everyone is flipping out. They tend to compare the virus to some other virus or disease that nobody else flips out over, so they don't quite understand why people are flipping out over this particular one. What makes it so special? Now, I'm not going to tell you which reaction is right or wrong. That's not for me to say. I'm not a doctor or infectious disease expert. I don't study this stuff. I don't really have any of the statistics committed to memory or even on hand to take a look at. Do I think that washing your hands and staying away from sick people is a good idea? Sure. I mean, that all makes sense. It made just as much sense in January, though, as it does now. I mean, it just is good advice in general. Do I think the government is overreaching by forcing businesses to close and mandating citizens to stay in their homes? Yeah, absolutely. I do. I still think it's the right thing to do for people in certain situations, like if there are people in your area who are sick with this virus. But I don't think the government should be the ones who are forcing people to stay in isolation. Now look, if you're in panic mode, none of that probably made you feel very comfortable, and you're probably not even listening anymore if that's the case. For those of you who stuck with me, you should realize, though, that everything is going to be okay. We as a country have been through far worse things than this virus. Remember, just 19 years ago, we lost about 3,000 people in a single day, and many more in the years after through various related illnesses that came from the debris and the dust and whatnot that came from the tower collapsing and the jet fuel burning and all this other stuff. But I'd like to think that we bounced back pretty well from all of that. Sure, it was a little scary at the moment. We didn't know if there would be other attacks, if the wars were going to be long drawn out wars or quicker, more surgical strikes. Like now, there was a lot of uncertainty back then. But look at how our friends, our family, our neighbors, our fellow countrymen and women bounce back. We're a resilient bunch when we've got our backs against the wall. Say what you will about America, but we are fairly resilient. For everyone in the other camp who aren't concerned about getting sick, just know that the symptoms from this sickness, from what I understand, is a bit more involved than just a bad cold or the flu. If you do get sick and require hospitalization, they won't be treating the virus. There's really no cure for that. They'll be putting you on a ventilator, though, to allow you to breathe. When my wife was hospitalized last year, she was intubated on a ventilator, and it was not a comfortable thing to have shoved down her throat. She was in a coma throughout the process, luckily for her, but it was a miserable thing to have afterwards. Her throat was torn up from this thing. It was just, she could barely talk. The tube that went through there just made it really difficult for her. And it was not a fun process to watch a loved one go through. I'm not trying to tell you to panic here, but maybe heed the advice of your local officials and stay out of public for a bit. Look, no matter where you fall on the panic spectrum, if you want to call it that, we're going to come through this okay. We'll probably even be stronger for it. I heard the president talking at a press conference the other day saying that we've learned a lot of things from our response to this. And by we, I mean the federal government, the state governments. They've learned a lot from our response to this, and in terms of our reserves of certain materials and medical supplies and all that type of stuff, and their response to getting it distributed to the right people at the right times, and the speed in which we'll respond in the future to other similar things. We've learned a lot about this. And that can only make us better off in the future, should some other crisis hit. Okay, so switching gears a bit, it's for anyone who's found themselves working from home for the first time. How's that been going for you? I've worked from home for almost 10 years now, and so my life hasn't really been upended all that much. Things aren't really all that different for me, other than the fact that when I go to the grocery store, there's no toilet paper on the shelves. Outside of that, my life is pretty much the same. So I have a few bits of advice for you, for the people who are working from home. It really does help to keep some sort of consistent schedule. Set your alarm for the same time that you usually would get up for work. If you normally get up at 5 or 6 or whatever it is, keep your alarm set for that and just wake up at that time. Take a shower, eat breakfast, get dressed in real clothes. They don't have to be fancy clothes unless you're getting on a video call to chat with a colleague or a client where you might be expected to be dressed up a little bit more. They could just be jeans and a t-shirt. But get out of the pajamas. I see some people who go to work when they're working from home and they're just wearing their underwear, or they're wearing, pajama pants and a, grungy t-shirt or something like that. They haven't even taken a shower in 2 or 3 days. And that just doesn't help things. You really start to feel grungy and run down, and besides the fact that it's terrible for your own hygiene, it just isn't good for your own mental space either. You should change out of those clothes, and it's almost like you're stepping into your work environment when you change out of those clothes. So throughout your day, like I was saying, keep some sort of consistent schedule. Take a break for lunch, and check out of work at a regular time. Don't work for 16 hours if you normally would only work for 8, just because your kitchen table is now your new office, and it just is right there. It's so convenient, conveniently located. It's convenient to just jump on and finish that one last thing, which turns into 2 things, 3 things. It turns into a whole big project that is now a whole extra, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours of work that you really don't need to be doing at that point. Trust me, you'll be better off if you just shut it all down and pick it back up tomorrow. I know for me, I used to do that where I would just work late at night trying to figure out problems, and I've already burned through empty on my reserves at that point. And the problem that I was trying to work on and try to figure out, it took me hours and hours and hours. And I felt like I just wasn't making any progress. And, at 10, 11 o'clock at night, I'm still trying to work on it, trying to figure it out. And I'm still feeling like I'm getting nowhere. But then I go in, I go back to sleep, wake up the next morning, a little bit more refreshed. I look at it, 15 minutes later, I have it figured out. So stepping away from your work for a little bit and coming back to it with fresh eyes can really be a benefit to you. And then you get some time too to spend with your family, to unwind, watch a TV show, relax a little bit, do the things that help you kind of decompress from the long day of work. So be sure to take some time for yourself to unwind. Maybe take a walk around the block if you can, before or after work. Do that just to get your body moving, because you end up sitting down in the same place for a long time. It's not really good for you. I try to keep a consistent schedule to exercise. I make sure I wake up early enough. I like to work out in the mornings. Wake up early enough. Make sure you get that exercise in, whether it's going for a run or a walk, bike ride, lifting some weights if you have them available to you in your home, because obviously we're not going to the gyms anymore right now, for at least for the time being. If you have that stuff available to you, try to do that. Get your body moving, and it really helps. For me, anyways, it really helps get the day started when I get a little bit of physical movement in the morning. If your job allows you to, try to set regular hours. I typically don't start work until 9 in the morning, and I shut down no later than 5 at night. And there may be a one-off meeting here or there that has to go outside those hours, because maybe time zones, and you might have somebody that you're working with who's in another country, or on the opposite coast from you, and you might need to adjust your schedule a little bit. But have that flexibility so that you can, if you're coming into work a couple hours earlier than you usually would, cut out a little bit early too. So that way you're not burning the candle at both ends and burning yourself out. But otherwise, outside of those one-off type things, I try to work pretty consistent hours. If your kids are home with you, and maybe your spouse is too, while you're trying to work, try to come up with an area that's an off-limits area where you can go and just not be disturbed. Of course, not everyone's house is set up perfectly for something like this, and I totally understand that. But even a corner of your bedroom where you can pull in a folding table or something like that, or set up a little mini desk on a nightstand or something, big enough for your computer to sit on, and in a folding chair or something like that. It's a space that's away from everybody else. It's going to allow you to have that space away from people, and they won't be coming to you, because they know that when you're in there, you're working, and you need that separation. You can even lock the door if you need to, just so that nobody comes in. I've even been using a pair of noise canceling headphones, which I'll post a link to in the show notes. They work really, really well. They really help cut out the noise from the kids. The way my office is set up, I'm actually pretty lucky, because it's somewhat off of the house. So I don't necessarily hear the kids all the time, but there is an upstairs room that's right above where my office is, and on occasion the kids are playing up there in the room, and I hear them bouncing around, doing whatever it is that they're doing. So having the noise canceling headphones on really helps cut that out. Even if they're outside near the office, playing on the the driveway, or running around doing stuff outside, while we have nice weather, it could really get distracting if I didn't have those noise canceling headphones. But I can throw them on. It blocks out a good portion of the noise. And then I can also listen to some music too. And that helps distract me from anything else that's going on, so I can just focus on the work that I need to do. But so they do help. I mean, if they're standing right next to you and screaming, the headphones aren't probably going to do very much. But if they're playing on the other side of the house or in another room, they do a pretty good job at blocking out the noise. It's even better, like I said, when you have that music going too. So look, we're going to be okay with all of this. Some of us are going to get sick, from this virus. Most of us won't. Those that do will, for the most part, be fine. These times aren't easy, but if our country is calling for us to literally do nothing, I think we can all rise to the occasion. Generations before us were called to do a whole lot more, and they prevailed. So let's not let them down. Thanks for listening to the Drive On Podcast. If you want to check out more episodes or learn more about the show, you can visit our website, driveonpodcast.com, or on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Drive On Podcast.